Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. Another 2 versus 2 field battle for you today. We're going to be bringing back Panthan with a new teammate. But it is another Valinor battle, which is always exciting to see, because I've been seeing some really unique Valinor compositions lately throughout the testing process. And just things I've never seen before, and people exploring dynamics with the new factions and what's good. So it's a pretty cool time to be alive in terms of Silmarillion replays for sure. But in any case, take a look at some of the compositions here. We've got the Grey Elves of Mithrim being played by Panthan, our hero from the last battle. He's got some Sentries here, which is a medium spear unit. They're going to have their armor upgrade, backed up with some Tunnel Runners of Mithrim, which are an armor-piercing dual-wield shock unit. Pretty scary here, especially for smashing into those front lines. Again, we're seeing a lot of, I'm seeing at least similarities to the last battle where he was hiding the Sentinels of Tyrion inside of some other spear units and things like that. They're going to be backed up with some Lookouts of Mithrim. Mithrim is pretty good when it comes to bowmen, but they do have a lot more shielded bowmen, which is, they do take some range penalties and things like that. So a little bit shorter range than some of their elven cousins, but 2 units here of them. And I can't remember what they have for secondaries. I think it might be... it might be armor-piercing. Mithrim has a really strong armor-piercing niche. They've got 3 units here of the Hunters of Mithrim. Speaking of, maybe it's not 3. Maybe it's just 2. 2 units of the Hunters of Mithrim. They're going to be Hunter Javelins, so high damage, high AP, low in-flight speed. So they can be dodged if you're quick on your feet, or they can miss units who are kind of more nimble and darting, in and out of range. But when they connect, does it hurt? In behind them, we've got the Shore Riders of Mithrim, and unlike other mounted cavalry units, like most of them, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2, who are legendary companies almost invariably, the Shore Riders of Mithrim actually have Hunter Javelins as well. So again, that armor-piercing niche kind of coming into play here. Scions of Tuor with their maces, again, armor-piercing, but probably noticing a little bit of a lack of armor. A lot of these guys are a lot more inclined to the more less protective, more nimble suites of armor. Swordbearers of Mithrim here with their armor upgrade. One of the few really heavy units here from Mithrim. Got the Hewing Guildsmen, again armor piercing. They've got the little special Matic weapon, which is kind of their class signature move, I suppose. So more AP over here in the form of a second unit of the Hewing Guildsmen. I've got a Scorpion out in front, and they're actually crewed by Fingolfin crewmen. And then, what do you know? There is a third unit of the Hunters here as well. So yeah, a bit of a scary army here. Not a ton of cavalry. I think we might actually be missing a couple units if we go and peek over in the woods. some sneaky ambush going on, but I can't actually find the units in question. Here they are. Got some Shore Riders, so a second unit of cavalry and some sentries as well, to kind of body block for them and help them create space so that they can get away from more dangerous opponents and even engage more dangerous opponents, since you can always pin things with those spears and then smash into them with your cavalry from the flank and the rear. Now let's go on over to the Valinor side, where it's another weird army. 1 unit here of the Sentries of Alqualande, because it's always nice to have a little pocket unit of cheap bowmen. 3, no less than 3 units of the Wild Riders of Arome, and I suspect, because these guys are quite good at fighting elephants in particular, that is because they've got a Nogrod player, I believe, across the way from them there. In behind, we've got Mariners of Alqualande, Adepts of Tulkas, that's going to be the General's Bodyguard. A whole bunch of Sentinels, 3 units of Sentinels, very much kind of the core and front line of this army, which is a funny thing to say, because there's only 150 of them in total across those 3 units. 3 units here of the Shoal Hunters of Alqualande as well. They do have a mace secondary, so there is some kind of usefulness against any heavier units, I suppose, that the Nogrod brings. And of course, the split-shot sling that they have, which sounds crazy, and that's probably because it is, but it's still a cool little utility that Valinor has that nobody else does. That's going to be really nice against a Beast Hunter horde, for example. So a lot of crowd control here, a lot of attempts, I think, to maybe hard counter the things that they're good at. We actually get to see the Heralds of Manwë in a game today. Now, these guys are a little bit interesting. They're more of an anti-elephant thing. They've got I believe the Throne trait on their weapons, so they do a lot of damage to elephants in particular, and of the elephant units in the game, they are especially well suited to fighting smaller numbers of elephants. Things like, say, Sauron or Balrogs, other things like that. When it comes to utilizing that projectile. After the fact, they do okay damage. They are an elephant as well, I believe. Oh, actually, they're cavalry. But they can do a decent enough amount of damage. You know what? Actually, I'm wrong. This is an elephant unit, so they do get all the nice things that come with being an elephant. They can run through stakes. They can do area attacks and things like that. So it's more of a niche unit from Valinor, which is why you probably don't see it all that often. But in a comp like this, I think it's perfectly suited. And then more Wild Riders of Orome, and then yet more Wild Riders of Orome. So I think that's pretty well going to do for these guys. Let's go ahead and see what their opponents have brought to the field today. All right. So beginning with the player just across from Valinor, it is indeed a Nogrod player, going to be played again by Hyperius Creon, who's apparently really enjoying this faction. We have switched up the comps a little bit, though. So we got some archers of Nogrod out here who can be quite efficient. They're also pretty decent in melee. Most of the Nogrod units really are. Beast hunters here to try and screen and protect them. Axe throwers as well, hiding behind a wall of stakes here in the event that there's a lot of cavalry across the field, and it's probably a good thing he did that because, well, there is. And Vault Wardens can be hanging out here as well, so some pikemen. Vault Wardens, I've said it in some of my other games, and I really think that in terms of generalized usefulness, the Vault Wardens are probably the best of the Nogrod high tiers. The other ones are a little bit more specialized, I suppose. The Stone Hewer is obviously really strong, armor piercing, lots of damage, is useful just about everywhere. But what you're going to bring them against is probably not going to be things like a City End or anything that, one, relies a lot on melee defense, and two, can just shoot this unit to death and absolutely ruin it and destroy your investment before you're able to get any sort of return on it. Whereas the Vault Wardens, they do have an extra shield as like value, basically, as sort of representing the spears getting in the way, knocking missiles astray and such. All pike units get that, and yeah, they do so much damage. I think they're probably the most damaging pike, and of course all the benefits that come with being a cavalry, screen, things that monsters are going to be afraid to kind of go toe to toe with. I really think that the Vault Wardens are a little bit more generalizable in terms of the benefits that they bring. Over here we have the Engineers of Nogrod. If you missed the last episode, I will just go over these guys in brief. They are essentially the melee cavalry component of the Nogrod army, and they also have a short-range Scorpion, which can be really, really useful against tightly packed groups of enemies. And yeah, it's just one of those things that kind of is perfect, I think, for supporting a rush, which is what Nogrod really likes to do a lot of the time. And if they didn't have tools like this, it'd be kind of almost too risky for them to move forward. So then, like, what do they do as this more lightly armored, like melee-focused faction, right? So really an important unit. I think you're probably going to see them in most compositions where anyone is expecting cavalry. Axe Throwers of Nogrod, hanging out over here. Another unit of them. Some more Vault Wardens, and then Stone Hewers, and then Warlords, who performed so well in the last game, and that's going to be the General's Bodyguard again. More Beast Hunters out front, supporting the Archers of Nogrod. And the last little bit here, we've got Miners, more Beast Hunters, and more Axe Throwers. So a lot of kind of micro and moving parts in this, a lot of short-ranged and some long-range missile units as well. And lots of screens and stuff like that to kind of keep them safe. And that's going to be a lot to maybe balance against so many cavalry and so many like fast-moving units on the Valinor side of things. Moving on now to his teammate, we have the House of Boar being piloted by Captain Gervais. He's got the ballista here. It's going to give him some macemen of Lothland. Probably noticing that we have a lot more armor-piercing units in this patch. And if you guys aren't familiar with kind of the overhaul and like what we've done, that's because a lot of things have a lot more armor. Elephants are a lot harder to bring down without AP. Heavy infantry especially has gotten big buffs there. Heavy cavalry can be very, very fearsome. So a lot of armor piercing has been moved over to generally quicker units, quicker numerous things, which generally translates into like mid-tier light medium troops, so you're going to see a lot more of them kind of running around, and that is very much to counter heavy infantry. A lot of medium and especially light infantry have gotten big buffs to their melee defense, for example. So that AP, while a strong stat overall, going to be a lot less useful against those units. So that's just kind of how we're keeping some more specialization, I guess, within the weapon types now. Anyway, moving on, we've got Wardens of Thargelion, looking like they've got an armor upgrade. They're splendent in their golden raiment. This is a pretty strong anchor unit, deployed out here in the wings, especially in support of that ballista, which is a little bit farther forward in an aggressive position. Yeah, not a bad place for them at all. In behind them, got some Clan Guard mixed in with some, looks like Salamandrine Dragon Hunters, and I think a regular unit. No, just Salamandrine Dragon Hunters. So Clan Guard and Halberd units really go together like peanut butter and jelly. It's one of those iconic combos that's just so efficient for board that I think you're going to see it basically every time. And as a front line, you really can't do a whole lot better throughout most of the heavy infantry factions in the game. It does have its own weaknesses, though. Of course, stacking all the troops on top of each other makes it a little bit more vulnerable to projectiles and artillery and things like that, which have really made a resurgence. There's a lot more. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting dynamics in Silmarillion. But anyway, moving on now. Skirmishers of Thargelion are going to be harassment javelins, so lots of ammo, not a lot of damage, but way more speed and range than the other javelins in the game. Amberoni Honor Guard with their armor upgrade, looking just beautiful and deadly, and indeed they are. Clan Guard of Thargelion back here, hidden behind another shield of Wardens of Thargelion. And then that front line is looking like Axemen and Spearmen, which is a little bit more interesting. A lot of times throughout the history of basically Total War multiplayer, like in the modded scene, you see a lot of fairly slow moving like halberds that form the front line. But now you're kind of seeing less halberds here in this army. Maybe there's more on the other side here and I'm kind of missing it. But it seems like players are really opting more for things that give them a bit more mobility and flexibility. That lets them, capitalize on opportunities, take advantage of terrain features on the map, outmaneuver their opponent, which I think is a really exciting thing to see. Like obviously pole arms, we saw them in the last game. They can be very strong, but they are quite slow. And so it's interesting to see the way that people kind of adapt and the meta shapes up overall. Anyway, a whole bunch of spearmen and the axemen in here as well. It looks like some Salamandrine Dragon Hunters, which is the detachment, sort of slightly different version of the halberds, going to be mixed in there as well. And then moving out onto the wing, we've got 1-2 units, I believe, of the Salamandrine Guard, and of course the Legendary Company, the Silver Wind, really strong anti-armor, anti-monster in particular cavalry. They are a lot... Oh, there goes the speaker again, every time. They are a lot more kind of lightly armored. They don't have as much shield and things like that as, say, the Salamandrine Guard do, so they are vulnerable to, the counters that would be obvious. But they do trade that off for some nasty charge values and that extra utility against monsters in particular. So, not too sure what he's hoping to use that against when it comes to the Mithram sentries, but I would, if I had to guess, since it's not exactly their specialization, but if I had to guess, that anti-armor thing is going to be really nice for maybe dealing with some of the shore riders, or at least neutralizing one unit of them. And then the salamanders, of course, have special AP melee weapons as well. Wow, it seems like we have a lot more AP than what we actually do. But yeah, usually it's the lighter units running around, and then when you have the heavy units like this that kind of have it, like these guys in the Rogue 20, they're quite expensive and pretty low in number. So I think the salamanders are like, what, 50 models? Yeah, 50 models. So every loss is quite keenly felt. Whether or not you guys like that, you can always let me know down in the description. I'm sure the algorithm gods would appreciate that, and it's always nice to hear people's kind of more fresh perspectives. Because obviously I hear a lot from our testers, but I don't hear quite as much from the community at large. So that would be real nice to hear. So, any case, Short Riders of Mithrim maybe looking like they want to take a bit of a defensive posture out here in the woods. They are, I believe, technically medium cavalry, so I don't think that they have the ability to hide in here. Maybe they do. Maybe it's medium and light cavalry that have the ability, but heavy cavalry certainly cannot. So they're Panthan kind of lying carefully in wait, right in the path of a very large contingent of Boar cavalry as they move through this pass here. I don't think he's going to stay there for too long, because this is more than enough to overwhelm them, and I don't think he'd ever get any kind of like efficiency against them, especially not with the Legendary Company Toe. But maybe he's going to go for it. We'll keep an eye on that, and we'll see where he ends up kind of going, or maybe he's going to bring some of his other shore riders out of hiding, or if it's really just a feint, right? Like, move forward, kind of get them to come in here, think that there's only just one cavalry visible, and then you smash into them with spears and a second unit cav. If he manages to do that, I think he could wipe out that entire cavalry force from the House of Boar, and then they'd be in a lot of trouble. Meanwhile, over here, very quick advance. Mithrim doesn't really have a ton of artillery. I think we did see maybe a Scorpion or something from them. That front line there of the light and medium infantry kind of supporting each other can be easy prey for the ballista just across the way there. That being said, the ballista is a little bit more tuned towards like fighting other artillery, whereas the catapult is really kind of the big heavy hitter. So it'll claim a few, but nothing to worry about. It's gonna be pretty, I think, light casualties there for Panthan. Meanwhile, the rest of this army moving up behind the shield of these of all these spearmen and axemen. Looks like maybe he's suspecting some sort of ambush potentially through here, or he wants to use this to reinforce his cavalry on the other side. This is a pretty strong position, I think, for him to have, because it does, of course, offer him access. So even like if he falls for the ruse here that maybe Panthan's trying to put in front of him, he still has some options, right? It won't necessarily be a complete disaster, and he can potentially turn it on its head. Not a lot going on for the time being. Let's pop on over to the Nogrod side of things. Looks like the Heralds of Manwë out in front have taken a little bit of damage here. Maybe some of these shoal hunters, they want to get a piece of these beast hunters, and it seems like indeed they did. They managed to take out a couple of chariots, which is always really nice. Siege breakers are here as well. Oh, I didn't even know. Very scary indeed. Thunder's Fox, I think, has the comp to really hurt this, but it's a very technical comp. Whereas Nogrod is more like kind of chew crayons, ape their way through it, because they just have so much melee strength, right? There's not as much finesse required here, whereas Tundra has a lot of skirmishers that can be overwhelmed in melee, and a lot of cavalry that he can't just kind of leave out and about willy-nilly. Meanwhile, there are some fast movers on the other side, so I think Tundra's Fox can do it with the comp that he's got, absolutely. But it's really gonna depend on like taking some strong engagements and kind of slowly bleeding off maybe some of these chariots and things like that, to give his shoal hunters in particular a little bit more room to breathe and space to move around. Meanwhile, up here, looks like Tundra's Fox taking a nice little aggressive position. Got the Mariners out in front, some bowmen over on this side. Looks like the Green Elf Scorpion is hanging out here as well. A Silver Surfer. We'll have to figure that out. Yeah, doing some damage here to the dwarves, but they are quite spread out, so that's going to be not as potentially scary, I think, as it would have been otherwise. And he does have the tools, I think, here to fire back and not just be completely at the mercy. Somehow, a small phalanx managed to make its way over here, which is going to be really nice, because Nogrod, they do have a decent amount of beast hunters, and not a huge front line. Oh, this is bad. This is very bad. So I don't know if Tundra's Fox is going to see this in time. Okay, he is going to see it, and he's going to beat feet to get out of there as quickly as he can, which probably a pretty good idea. That one chariot alone could basically wipe out a big investment of these units here. Now, I don't think I talked about them, but he does have the Grieving Sons, and that's a recipe for completely destroying those siege breakers. And looks like the Heralds are going to be committed to the fray here. I would expect them to do reasonably well, though it looks like one of them kind of fell quite quickly there in combat, which is surprising. But they are already a little bloodied, So it's probably something, I would say, to do with that. Oof, yeah. You know what I think it is? I think it's the engineers. I think there's something about their projectile that like kills elephants very efficiently. Good, some nice shots there. Oof, yeah, definitely don't want to leave the shoal hunters here, though. I would have been pulling them back, I think, the entire time. Again, like I said, it's a very technical comp with not a lot of like margin for error, and really, this can go wrong very quickly, and I think it's starting to. Poor Tundra's Fox. These poor shoal hunters are really just going to be at the mercy of these heavy chariots. Let's go ahead and slow it down just a little bit, though. We don't want to miss too much. I see it's the blasting charges, perhaps, that are killing these guys off a little bit more quickly than they should be. So the Heralds of Manway not really given their best showing here for their kind of like debut game. But that's okay. As I mentioned, it's all work in progress at the moment. So these siege breakers doing pretty well. I think it's the projectiles that have some unintended effects here. Shoal hunters, this is bad. Like the beast hunters have managed to get on top of them and basically have to pay nothing for it. Sentinels now being brought in to maybe staunch the bleeding, and they're going to be. It'd be very easy to overwhelm them, I think, between like the siege breakers and all these numbers here. So he is going to be able to at least save these guys, but they've been quite severely mauled, I think. So 15%, still even in terms of overall percentages, and it looks like they managed to absolutely delete a unit of the Stone Heroes of 2 months of army. Look at that final volley off there. Yep. And down they go. Now they are being preyed upon a little bit by those engineers, which, sucks. Wow, Sentinels really kind of stepping up here. They're doing a lot better than I gave them perhaps credit for. And that's going to give maybe the shoal hunters the reprieve that they need. I would expect the wild hunters to do a lot better against the... Oh, nasty. Against the siege breakers. Beautiful rear charge there. This is a unit that was perhaps a little bit far forward. Like, if they still had ammunition, it would be perfect to fight these siege breakers. Wild Riders now being brought forward. I really want to know what happens here, but I feel like we're neglecting the other side. So we're going to pop on over to the other side, get a sense of what's going on with the House of Boar here. Shore Riders and the sentries looks like they've been driven out of the tree line. There is some kind of skirmish here between the Silver Wind, although they seem to be getting the better of the Mithrim cavalry. Some Wardens of Thargelion, indeed, probably brought straight through this pass here once Rex knew kind of what he was dealing with, and now there's a lot of pressure here, and really just one unit of sentries to kind of keep things together. And now the cavalry from Panthan really not having a good time. The other one has kind of had to beat feet and get out of there, but the Salamandri Guard are basically untouched, and now they're able to focus all of their resources on this one lone unit of Shore Riders, and that really sucks, because that's a lot of cavalry, and now he's got no more answers for it. So hopefully things are going better for him on the front line. The Clan Guard here looks like that combo of sentries and tunnel runners is really paying off for him. Hunters of Mithrim have been brought forward here. Amberoni Honor Guard basically haven't taken a single casualty, I think. But over here, things aren't going quite so well, although it's possible that this begins to switch again. As you can see, Mithrim, especially with some of those human guildsmen, starting to wrap around this group of troops here. Hunters of Mithrim engaging these skirmishers of Boar. Kind of a bit of a sloppy advance here. Looks like maybe 2 units of sword bearers. Moving forward to kind of contest the grounds here. And another contingent of those Boar troops who... Yeah, they're basically in control of kind of the middle of the battlefield here, and the other team is essentially sundered from one another. So, I don't know, maybe I give it to the red team in this case. They've certainly got the positioning here. If you kind of look, right, there's like a little bit of Valinor in the center here, and like some Mithrim, things like that, but there's this big gap that they're just kind of able to exploit, and one of them leads directly behind Panthan's forces, and there's not really anything in the way that can potentially threaten an advance or even stop it from happening. Meanwhile, they're penned over here with all of that cavalry. You can see most of that, I think, is the Mithram cavalry just taking disgusting losses. Salamanders, this one somehow managed to take a little bit extra damage here. I'd love to know where the rest of them are. Looks like they're running around the back. So they have taken some damage, but this is a lot. This is a lot of cavalry, and like I said, it's wide open. And there are some shore riders left, but not enough. Not enough to take these guys on, especially not once the other unit arrives on scene as well. Lookouts have been brought forward, but they're going to be easy prey without this this cavalry to kind of defend them, and this is really limited to what Panthan can do with them and where he can deploy these guys. So looks like a pretty brutal Mithram defeat here on the horizon. That being said, he is doing really well at chewing up that front line. And over here, he is actually kind of winning decisively. So that might force Rex to maybe bring some other troops over here to kind of staunch the wound and not just shunt them through into this little gap here in support of Nogrod, his ally. Valinor, on the other side, I really want to know how this is going. So it seems Siegebreakers are still active. Wild Riders kind of got in there, and it looks like they mixed it up pretty nice. There are, of course, some engineers who I assume have been shooting at them the entire time. So that combination there, it's kind of almost canceled each other out. And meanwhile, these Sentinels are just blending these Beast Hunters. This must be all them. Like, that's so impressive. Tundra's Fox now going to pull out some of his Shoal Hunters while he still has time. Maybe bring them to bear here against this Nogrod advance. That could be absolutely devastating. Vault Wardens here in the front line have run headlong into pretty well the best that Valinor has to offer here, as well as some Human Guildsmen and some Hunters of Mithram as well. So yeah, a lot of things being brought against the poor Vault Wardens here, who I know I did a lot of talking up for them, but Valinor infantry, especially AP infantry in the form of the Adepts, plus Hunter Javelins nearby, these guys are not going to win that fight, not in a million years. More fresh troops being brought forward here. It looks like that's going to be enough to see off these Wild Riders and maybe free up what remains of Hyperius Creon's supporting units. Some Sentinels of Tyrion now looking like they're moving their way in behind the enemy advance. The Miners from Nogrod are going to basically moments from death here if they decide to kill them. And it looks like they're not, but they're going to go over here against the Beast Hunters and things like that. And they're going to have no problem whatsoever. And I think these guys are completely out of ammunition. I'd maybe smash them into the sentries and then wheel around and try and go for a full surround here, if possible. There is still a chance that they can, win decisively here. Yeah, there's still a chance that they can kind of like win this potentially decisively. Although I think maybe I goofed a little bit here, and they're actually tossing these. Oh no, they are. I was on the money for that one. So Mithram really thinning out a lot of these dwarves here, and Sentinels of Tyrion going to have just fun. Really, they're just going to swim through this fight, no problem at all, blending dwarves as they go. And over here, there's a lot of pressure from Boar, and you can see that this defense here is really starting to crumble, and I think that Rex is going to have a pretty decisive win here over Panthan. So Panthan and Valinor maybe in a little bit of trouble here. I think he's capable of probably holding off Boar for just a little bit longer, but at this point I imagine he's just going for just deal as much damage as you possibly can, buy as much time as you possibly can before it all kind of goes sideways, and hope that Tundra's is able to turn things around. Some Clan Guard have now made their way over here. Boar and the Salamandrine Dragon Hunters. Nogrod get cut apart here by some Miners of Alqualande. Ooh, one of these... interesting to see who was going to do better here. I am curious, because the Engineers have pretty good bonuses, but then, again, so do the Wild Riders. So I would expect, they're going to be able to drag these guys down really, really quickly. They're going to be able to do it fast enough that these Vault Wardens, rather, are not going to be able to get in there and support them before that unit is completely cut apart. Looks like maybe the Shoal Hunter is going to punish that movement now, but there's not really much left from Nogrod on this side. 64 to 63, though, still relatively close in terms of percentages. But how much longer, I wonder? Tendrils has managed to hold on to these Shoal Hunters here for longer than I thought he was going to be able to. I thought maybe once the Chariot was in here that he would have just... the Chariot and those Beast Hunters, that he would have just smashed apart all of those skirmishers, and that's a lot of money. That's like 3-ish thousand gold, I think. Maybe it's closer to 2, but it's still quite a lot. That would have saved him, Hyperius, a lot of pain. Vault Wardens doing their best to hold it together, but I think that that's all she wrote for them. Turner's Fox now feeling pretty confident and able to bring his Wild Riders over to bear against the Boar army, which may be losing a little bit of steam here. There are some Sentinels fighting hand-to-hand against Clan Guard. Not a lot of Sentinels, but the Clan Guard don't really do a ton of damage. They're really more of an Outlast and... yeah, just an Outlast kind of survival unit. Whereas, you know, hemmed in by Hunters of Mithrin here, I don't know. It's going to take them a long time in order to cut their way through those heavy infantry. Rex trying to consolidate a solid victory over here, which he mostly has done, but Panthan holding on, tooth and nail, not going quietly into that good night at all. And it looks like the troops that managed to kind of win on this side are now free to smash into what was previously a pretty healthy unit of skirmishers of Thargelion, and I think they might just get wiped out in a few moments here. Salamandrine Guard charging in to possibly the Spearman. Yeah, it looks like Panthan's going to see it and turn around. I gotta say, I've seen a lot of Panthan games, and he's really, really come a long way since he first started playing, and since, you know, you can measure that in some of the replays that we put on the channel as well. So Panthan really showing that he can kind of hang out there with the best of them. And yeah, it's a victory for Rex, but is it going to be a strong enough victory that he's also able to destroy Valinor after the fact? Sword Bearers here completely surrounded by spears and axemen and all kinds of things. The Ballista Macemen have now been brought forward, so this is just a matter of time. But I don't know, Tendra's got some decent stuff left. A lot of Shoal Hunters, some decent AP in particular, which is going to be very strong against Boar. Clan Guard. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to hold up for too much longer. And I think, yeah, there it is. Yeah, Nogrod is just completely finished. So really it's down to Rex to see if he can salvage some sort of victory from this. And I don't know if he's got the numbers. Like, there's a decent amount left here for the blue team, and yeah, I don't know if he's got the chops to do this. Like, Boar is very good, but Boar is good at a grind and like having superior numbers and kind of making people like cut their way through your formidable defenses and slowly attriting them down. But there's a lot of things here, like the Shoal Hunters can just deal lots of damage from range. There's some good AP, and he doesn't really have the numbers, so Boar can't really fight the sort of battle that they're going to want to fight in order to be able to defeat what's left of Valinor. But perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps he'll manage to pull this out after all. Certainly killing the Mithrin General would be excellent if he was able to do that. So he's managed to break these guys, so he's going to free up these troops here. These Sword Bearers, man, they just won't go down, eh? It's going to take quite some time before that's able to happen. So I imagine what he'll try and do, just to save some time, if he's got the ability, is like maybe open this up so he can bring in some of his cavalry to charge things down. But Valinor may be a bit too quick for him. Not going to give him that opportunity to kind of free up a significant portion of his troops over there, unless he's going to pull some guys out of there. Ballista, Macemen, which is always nice. But Tundras is going to be pretty much on top of him. Still got some ammo left over. Able to maybe prey on some of the cavalry. Warden's still pretty healthy, but that's, again, not a unit that does a lot of damage. It's a unit that survives over time. What we got over here? Anything left from Mithrin? Certainly there's some hewing guildsmen. Oh, a bunch of sentinels too as well. That's going to be the big thing here, is these sentinels, especially, you know, if he uses them together to just like smash through the thinly spread forces here from Mr. Gervais, then there's nothing he's got that can stop him. sword bearers. Maybe starting to break a little bit. That would be a big boon for Mr. Gervais, because yeah, Tundra's he's out for blood. He's looking for an opportunity here to probably smash into those macemen. Like one good charge, that's all it's going to take to flatten this unit for sure. Looks like he's going to find the opportunity. He's going to go for it. Rex will see it, turn around, but I don't think it's going to matter. Oh, the damage. So much damage. Now, he does take a bit in return, more than I kind of expected, but I think the Wild Riders are maybe... they've probably seen some shit at this point and are a little bit weakened because of that. Macemen down from like 125 down to less than 100. Not a bad charge indeed. And those Wardens are going to take all that split fire on the chin, but it's not really going to do too much to them, I don't think. And that's going to give Rex the opportunity, I think, that he needs to maybe try and round here. If he can just, like, smash in, maybe, and, like, start to surround people and such, then, like, maybe it's a fight that he can win. I kind of underestimated the amount of numbers that he has. He does have a fair amount of his army still remaining. I think about 13-ish or maybe like 17-ish% of the his overall team remaining. But yeah, there's some pretty big heavy hitters here still to come. And well, we got some Salamandrines going in there against the Wild Riders. The Wild Riders have the number though, the numbers rather. Some Salamanders on the other side managing to crash into the Sentries of Alcalande. Ooh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he can actually pull this off. Pushing his way through there, just using the mass and weight of his numbers. And down go more of those sentries. I would expect him to rout here pretty well immediately. Meanwhile, the Wild Riders are kind of pinned down over here. And what do you know? Still got some skirmishers left. That's a big boon. I think these Wild Riders probably need to be brought over this way. Ooh, but that volley there, that was very, very painful. Rex is kind of almost hurting as much on his cavalry as the Valinor army is on their end as well. Oh, yeah, maybe he's got enough. Yeah, he can't really defend these guys. If he can kind of inundate those Salamanders before they have a chance to pull out. It's a lot of AP. He can end up with the cavalry supremacy at the end of this. That would obviously be super, super useful for him. No, Salamanders are going to be able to get back out of there and then get that AP charge into the Sentinels, who were doing so well previously. And now they're basically goners. Well, this has certainly turned on its head. I didn't think he'd have the numbers, and especially like the fatigue that he's at as well. I thought maybe if Valinor could hold him off for just a little while, that they would basically watch his army crumble around him as things begin to rout, just due to the sheer amount of debuffs stacked on them. Let's see. Yeah, they're not going to have the opportunity. So probably the big thing here is that he needs to defend these guys with the cavalry, but he also needs the cavalry to stop Rex from running roughshod all over his army, especially the Teleri. Really don't stand up to that terribly well. So he's in a bit of a pickle here. I guess Rex kind of has him pinned, and it's looking like it's going to be a pretty solid boar victory here. Yeah, Tundra's, he had a really good strategy for fighting Nogrod. He beat the brakes off of Nogrod, let's be honest here. But I guess at the end of the day, he just didn't have the troops remaining to fight Boar, who's quite heavily armored. Now he does have, you know, maces and stuff here and things like that, but he doesn't really have like a super strong front line. I thought maybe the Sentinels of Tyrion would be able to carry it, but you know, to an extent they kind of are. Like, this is what I mean. This is a really, really strong unit, an absolute blender, especially against things that are just, you know, exhausted like this. That high damage, it's going to do so much, you know, backed up, especially with adepts of tool costs and things like that. So a double unit of like Sentinels of Tyrion plus the adepts backing them up, it's going to whack its way through, you know, numbers 3-4 times its own. But it was being unable to defend the Shoal Hunters. I think that's really kind of turning this around here. I think this is basically all she wrote for him. Now, I don't see any of that cavalry left over, so I'm going to assume that basically he doesn't have any left, which means that Rex... Yeah, so only got a few models left here and there, but it's certainly enough. Yeah, these spearmen, again, they just won't die. Sentinels of Tyrion slowly beginning to fall away now. Just fast forward it a little bit here. So we're getting down to the end of the game. This would be a great time to pull out some crazy hidden units from the trees and throw them at the red team. But I don't think there's going to be any miracles today. Oh, there's the depths of Tulkas. Oh man, I just took down one of those horsemen like it was nothing. And they're going to fight hard. I mean, they're going to fight hard. They've got Relentless. Like, the fact that they're surrounded, they almost enjoy it. But there's just too many numbers here, and they're now beginning to fall. Still, another close game. 93 to 96. Like I said, some really, really close games here. And I was happy to be wrong on this one. I thought Mr. Gervais had basically no chance on this, but he managed to kind of pull it out. He got into the soft underbelly of the Valinor army, whereas if he had just kind of charged headlong at it, I think that the AP and the Sentinels probably would have cut through what he had left there. But yeah, you leveraged the cavalry well, really put Tundras in a position where, you know, the backline was never safe, because he only had one unit of cavalry and it could only be in so many places. And then having that little pocket unit of skirmishers in the back there slowly attriting the Wild Riders, who went from like 19 or 20 or something. And that would have been quite difficult for the remaining Salamandrian Guard to deal with. And he took them down just over time. And yeah, that was really, really nicely done. Tundra's Fox getting a ton of kills there, most kills in the game for sure. A really big army from Hyperius Creon. Didn't do quite so well in terms of overall kills, but also look who he was fighting, right? Like, look at the difference between him and his ally. He had less than 1,000 troops there, and you know, Hyperius managed to kill off the majority of them. So let's see. Adepts Tulkas doing really well. Grieving Sons unfortunately didn't do as well, I think, as they could have. One of those Wild Riders, again, the curse strikes. Like, when you bring 3 of something, one of them will do exceedingly well, one of them will do pretty well, and then the other one will just do complete garbage. It's sort of how it is. I don't know. Weird superstition. But yeah, 400 kills on one of those Wild Riders definitely paid for themselves. Sentinels getting consistently good damage, as of course they always do. Sentries of Aquilani did pretty well this time. They had more optimal targets to shoot at. Certainly a lot better than the 14 they got in the last game we showed with Valinor. Shoal Hunters, 117, 112. And then this one did okay. Well, has the curse been broken? And Mariners of Aquilon there. Only 79 and 80 on them, but I guess that's not too bad. Anyway, the Heralds really just did abysmally, but I think that that's because there's some technical stuff we need to work on in the sort of like the back rooms, essentially, of what's going on with those projectiles, because they seem to be killing elephants a little bit too efficiently. So that probably also didn't help as well. In any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, warts and all, and I will see you guys next time.